Welcome to the channel. If you're here, it means something inside you is asking a difficult question, a question most people are afraid to face. Before we begin, take 1 second. Subscribe to the channel, not because you owe us anything, but because what you're about to hear might change the way you see yourself, your past, and your future. Now, let's begin. The quiet belief that is holding you back. Let me ask you something honestly. Do you believe that people can change? Not in theory, not in motivational quotes, but really change. Most people say yes, but they don't live like it. Deep down, many people are convinced of the opposite. They believe they are trapped by their childhood, trapped by their mistakes, trapped by trauma, fear, personality, or circumstances. They say things like, "That's just how I am. I can't change. My past ruined me. If only things were different back then." And the dangerous part is this. They don't even realize they're making a choice. They think they're being realistic, but in reality, they're surrendering. Why everyone wants to change, but almost no one does. Here's a strange contradiction. Almost everyone wishes they could change something about themselves, their habits, their confidence, their relationships, their life. Yet very few people actually change. Why? Because if change were easy, people wouldn't spend their entire lives wishing for it. They would just do it. The fact that so many people feel stuck tells us something important. It's not lack of information. It's not lack of intelligence. It's not even lack of opportunity. It's something deeper. The lie we are taught about the past. From a very young age, we are taught a powerful story. Who you are today is the result of what happened to you in the past. Your childhood, your parents, your education, your environment, your wounds. This sounds logical. It sounds scientific. It sounds compassionate. And sometimes it sounds comforting. Because if the past is responsible, then you are not. But here is the uncomfortable truth. When you fully accept this story, you quietly give up control of your life. You turn yourself into an effect instead of a decision maker. Cause versus purpose, a radical shift. Most people explain human behavior by asking, what caused this? But there is another question that almost no one asks. What is this for? Not cause, purpose. This changes everything. Instead of saying, I am like this because of my past, you begin to ask, what am I using this behavior for right now? This is not about blaming yourself. It's about reclaiming power. The dangerous comfort of victimhood. Let's be honest. Believing that you are controlled by your past has one big advantage. It removes responsibility. If your anxiety is caused by trauma, you don't have to confront fear. If your anger is caused by circumstances, you don't have to examine your choices. If your unhappiness is caused by your upbringing, you don't have to risk changing. This belief protects you, but it also imprisons you. Why fear disguises itself as truth. Most people say, I want to change, but I can't. What they really mean is, I want change without uncertainty. But change always comes with uncertainty. The familiar pain of staying the same often feels safer than the unknown risk of becoming someone new. So the mind creates a convincing explanation. I'm broken. I'm damaged. This is just who I am. And once you accept that explanation, you stop moving. The present is more powerful than the past. Here's something most people never realize. The past does not exist anywhere except in your interpretation of it. You cannot touch it. You cannot change it. You cannot go back to it. But you can decide right now what meaning it has. Two people can experience the same event and build completely different lives from it. The event does not decide your future. Your interpretation does. Why determinism is a hidden form of hopelessness. If your present is fully determined by your past, then your future is already written. And if your future is already written, hope becomes an illusion. This is why many people feel tired even when nothing physical is wrong. They are exhausted from carrying a future they believe they cannot escape. You are not an object, you are an actor. Every day, consciously or unconsciously, you move towards certain goals. Even avoidance is a goal. Even stagnation is a choice. Even suffering can serve a purpose. This does not mean suffering is fake. It means it is meaningful, and meaning can be changed. The hardest truth to accept. Here is the sentence most people resist. You are not living the way you are because you must. You are living this way because, on some level, you have chosen it. This does not make you weak. It makes you human. And more importantly, it means you can choose differently. Why this idea feels offensive. When people first hear this, they feel attacked. How can you say that? I didn't choose this pain. And that reaction makes sense, because for a long time, this belief has been protecting you. Letting go of it feels like standing without armor, but armor also prevents movement. Change does not begin with motivation. Change begins with awareness. The awareness that you are not fixed, you are not finished, you are not trapped. And the awareness that staying the same is not neutral, it is an active decision. The cost of not changing. Every year you delay change, the price increases. The habits become deeper, the excuses become smarter, the fear becomes more convincing. And one day, you may wake up and realize you didn't lose your life to tragedy, but to hesitation. The first door is now open. This first part is not about giving you answers. It's about breaking a wall, the wall that says, I can't. In the next part, we will talk about emotions, fear, anger, anxiety, not as enemies, but as tools. And once you understand that, you will never see yourself the same way again. If this spoke to you, subscribe to the channel, not for content, for clarity. Because in the next part, we go deeper, and we don't come back the same. Stay with us.
Part 2. Your emotions are tools, not enemies. This space is not about comfort. It's about clarity, growth, and real change. In the first part, we broke a powerful illusion, the idea that your past controls your future. Now, we move deeper. Because even when people accept that they can change, they still feel blocked. And the reason is simple. They are fighting their emotions instead of understanding them. Why most people are at war with themselves. From a very young age, we are taught a dangerous lesson. Some emotions are good, others are bad. Happiness is good. Confidence is good. Calm is good. Fear is bad. Anger is bad. Anxiety is bad. So when uncomfortable emotions appear, we panic. We try to suppress them, ignore them, distract ourselves from them. And when that doesn't work, we start to believe something is wrong with us. But here is the truth most people never hear. Emotions are not problems. They are signals. The real function of emotions. Every emotion exists for a reason. Fear is not here to destroy you. It exists to protect you. Anger is not here to ruin your relationships. It exists to defend boundaries. Anxiety is not weakness. It is preparation. Sadness is not failure. It is reflection. When you label emotions as enemies, you lose access to their intelligence. And when you lose that intelligence, you become confused about yourself. Why suppressing emotions makes life worse. Many people believe that strong people don't feel fear. that successful people don't feel doubt, that confident people don't feel anxiety. This is a myth. Strong people feel fear and move anyway. Successful people feel doubt and act anyway. Confident people feel anxiety and don't let it decide. Suppression doesn't make emotions disappear. It drives them underground, and what is buried alive never stays quiet. The question that changes everything. Instead of asking, "Why do I feel this?" ask, "What is this emotion trying to help me achieve?" This question changes the relationship completely. Now fear becomes information. Now anger becomes guidance. Now anxiety becomes strategy. You stop being a victim of emotions and start being a user of them. Fear is not the enemy of growth. Fear is present whenever growth is possible. If there is no fear, you are probably not growing. Fear appears when you are about to change, when you are about to risk, when you are about to leave the familiar. The problem is not fear. The problem is when fear becomes the decision maker. Why avoidance feels so attractive? Avoidance feels good in the short term. You avoid the conversation, you avoid the challenge, you avoid the risk, and immediately tension drops. But what you gain in comfort, you pay for in self-respect. Over time, avoidance teaches the brain one thing: you are not capable. And that belief is far more damaging than fear itself. Anxiety is not a prediction. Anxiety feels like certainty. It tells you this will go wrong, you will fail, you will be rejected. But anxiety is not prophecy. It is imagination without discipline. It shows you one possible future and convinces you it is the only one. Learning to act with anxiety, not after it disappears, is one of the most powerful skills you can develop. Anger is the most misunderstood emotion. Anger is often judged harshly, but anger appears when something matters. It signals a boundary was crossed, a value was violated, a need was ignored. The problem is not anger. The problem is unexamined anger. When ignored, anger becomes resentment. When understood, anger becomes clarity. Why emotional honesty is strength. Many people pretend to be fine. They smile, they joke, they say everything is okay, but inside there is tension. Emotional honesty doesn't mean emotional chaos. It means acknowledging what is real. When you stop lying to yourself, you stop wasting energy, and that energy becomes power. The hidden payoff of staying stuck. This is uncomfortable but important. Every emotional pattern you have is serving you in some way. Fear may protect you from failure. Anxiety may protect you from responsibility. Anger may protect you from vulnerability. If you don't see the benefit, you can't change the pattern. Change begins when you ask, "What am I gaining by staying this way?" You don't need to eliminate fear. You don't need to become fearless. Fearlessness is not courage. It's ignorance. Courage is action in the presence of fear. Waiting to feel ready is a trap. Readiness is a result of action, not a requirement. Emotional mastery is not control. Emotional mastery is not suppression. It's not dominance. It's relationship. You listen. You interpret. You decide. Emotions advise. You choose. That's leadership. Why people stay emotionally immature. Emotional maturity requires responsibility, and responsibility is heavy. It's easier to say, "This is just how I feel," than to say, "This is how I feel, and I still choose how I act." But growth demands the second sentence. The shift from reaction to choice. When you pause between emotion and action, you create freedom. That pause is small, but it changes everything. In that moment, you are no longer controlled, You are choosing. Your emotions are not your identity. You are not your fear. You are not your anxiety. You are not your anger. You are the one experiencing them, and that distance is power. What comes next? Now that you understand emotions as tools, not enemies, something important happens. You stop running from yourself. In the next part, we will talk about happiness, not the fake version, not the motivational version, but the uncomfortable truth about why many people avoid happiness and choose familiar suffering instead. And once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it.
Part 3. Why many people are afraid of happiness. If this is your first time here, subscribe to the channel now. Not for motivation, for truth. In the previous parts, we exposed two major illusions: that your past controls your future, and that your emotions are enemies. Now we face something even more uncomfortable. The reason many people are not happy is not because happiness is impossible. It's because on a deep level, they are afraid of it. The strange resistance to happiness. Happiness sounds like a universal goal. Everyone wants it. Everyone talks about it. Everyone chases it. So why do so many people avoid it when it's within reach? Why do people sabotage good relationships? Why do they destroy momentum? Why do they return to toxic patterns they claim to hate? Because happiness demands something most people resist: change in identity. Happiness requires you to let go of familiar pain. Pain, when repeated, becomes familiar, and what is familiar feels safe, even if it hurts. For many people, struggle becomes part of who they are. They don't just experience pain, they identify with it. Remove the pain, and they don't know who they are anymore. So unconsciously, they return to it. Why success can feel threatening. Success doesn't only change your life, it changes how others see you and how you see yourself. With success comes visibility. With visibility comes judgment. With judgment comes responsibility. Many people prefer to fail quietly than succeed publicly, not because they lack talent, but because success removes excuses. The comfort of being the one who struggles. Struggle can become a role, the misunderstood one, the unlucky one, the one who always tries but never wins. These roles attract sympathy. They lower expectations. They protect you from criticism. But they also keep you small. When you outgrow the role, you risk losing the attention that came with it. Why happiness feels like betrayal. For some people, being happy feels wrong. They think, if I'm happy, I'm forgetting what happened. If I move on, it means it didn't matter. If I succeed, I betray my past. But happiness is not denial. It's not erasure. It's integration. You don't honor pain by repeating it. You honor it by transforming it. The fear of responsibility that comes with joy. Happiness is not passive. It requires maintenance, presence, choice. When things are going well, you can no longer blame circumstances, and that level of ownership feels heavy. Misery allows escape. Happiness demands leadership. Why some people feel guilty when life improves. Improvement creates distance. Distance from old friends, distance from old environments, distance from old habits. And with distance comes guilt. You may feel like you are leaving people behind, like your growth is an insult. So you slow down, you shrink, you wait. But growth is not betrayal, it's expansion. The illusion of "I'll be happy when." Many people postpone happiness. I'll be happy when I reach this goal, when I fix myself, when life becomes easier. But happiness is not a destination. It's a way of engaging with life. Waiting for perfect conditions is a sophisticated form of avoidance. Why familiar suffering feels safer than unfamiliar joy. Suffering you know feels manageable. Joy you don't know feels risky. Joy raises expectations. Joy creates momentum. Joy demands consistency. So people return to what they can predict, even if it hurts. Happiness exposes your self-image. If deep down you believe you don't deserve good things, you are not enough, you are flawed beyond repair, then happiness will feel uncomfortable. It will clash with your identity, and the mind will try to restore balance by creating problems. The courage to be happy. Happiness requires courage, not the loud kind, the quiet one. The courage to accept good things, the courage to stay present, the courage to stop self-sabotage, the courage to say, "This is allowed." You don't need to suffer to be worthy. Worth is not earned through pain. You don't need to struggle to justify your existence. You don't need to suffer to deserve love. You don't need to stay broken to stay loyal to the past. You are allowed to be whole. Redefining what happiness really is. Happiness is not constant pleasure. It's alignment. Alignment between who you are, what you value, and how you live. When these are aligned, peace becomes natural. Why choosing happiness feels like a risk? Because it is. It risks outgrowing people, losing old identities, facing your full potential. But not choosing it risks something worse, a life half-lived. What comes next? In the final part, we will talk about freedom, real freedom, not motivation, not positivity, freedom in relationships, freedom in choices, freedom to become who you decide to be. If this challenged you, comment, because the final part ties everything together, and it might be the most important one. Part 4. Freedom, relationships, and choosing your life. If you've stayed until now, you already know this channel is different. So before we finish this journey together, subscribe, not for motivation, for transformation. This final part brings everything together: the past, emotions, happiness. Now we talk about freedom, not the idea of freedom, real freedom. Freedom is not the absence of limits. Most people misunderstand freedom. They think freedom means no responsibility, no pressure, no expectations. But that version of freedom doesn't exist. True freedom is about choosing which limits you accept. You are always constrained by something: fear, values, goals, relationships. Freedom is choosing consciously instead of reacting automatically. Why most problems are relationship problems. Here's a truth many people avoid. Almost every major life struggle is rooted in relationships. Not just romantic ones, relationships with parents, partners, friends, authority, society, yourself. If you feel trapped, it's often because you are trying to live someone else's expectations. The invisible contracts you never agreed to. From childhood, you inherit invisible contracts. Be this way. Don't disappoint. Don't outgrow us. Stay small. You never signed them, but you obey them. Breaking these contracts feels dangerous, like betrayal, like rejection. But obedience has a cost: your authenticity. Why approval is the most expensive addiction. Approval feels good. It gives relief, belonging, safety, but it comes with a hidden price. You start living for reactions, not values. You become strategic instead of honest, polite instead of real, accepted instead of fulfilled. Freedom begins when approval is no longer your currency. the fear of disappointing others. Many people are not afraid of failure, they are afraid of disappointing others. They say yes when they mean no. They stay silent when they should speak. They shrink when they should expand. But disappointment is unavoidable. If you don't disappoint others, you will disappoint yourself. And that disappointment is quieter, but far more destructive. Why boundaries feel like guilt. Setting boundaries feels selfish at first because you were trained to confuse love with sacrifice. But boundaries are not walls, they are clarity. They teach people how to treat you, and they teach you what you are willing to tolerate. No boundaries means no freedom. You teach people how to treat you. Every time you tolerate disrespect, you normalize it. Every time you avoid conflict, you teach silence. People don't cross boundaries because they are evil. They cross boundaries because none were defined. Freedom requires communication, even when it's uncomfortable. The relationship you cannot escape. You can leave cities, you can change jobs, you can end relationships, but there is one relationship you cannot escape, the relationship with yourself. If you betray yourself daily, no external freedom will save you. Integrity is internal alignment, and without it, success feels empty. Why self-respect changes everything. Self-respect is not arrogance, it's consistency. It's doing what you said you would do. It's honoring your values even when no one is watching. Confidence grows from evidence, not affirmation. Every kept promise builds freedom inside you. Choosing your life means losing some people. This is painful, but it's true. Growth creates distance. Clarity creates friction. Freedom creates separation. Some people are attached to who you were, not who you are becoming. You don't need to convince them. You don't need permission. You need courage. Loneliness is often a transition, not a destination. When you change, there is often a gap. Old connections fade, new ones haven't formed yet. That space feels lonely, but it's not emptiness, it's preparation. Don't rush to fill it with distractions. Let it refine you. Why responsibility is the price of freedom. Freedom and responsibility are inseparable. If you want freedom, you must own your choices, your reactions, your patterns. Blame is comfortable. Responsibility is empowering. The moment you stop blaming, your life becomes yours. You are always choosing, even when you don't notice. Not choosing is a choice. Staying silent is a choice. Waiting is a choice. The difference now is awareness, and awareness turns unconscious habits into conscious decisions. That is freedom. Integrating the whole journey. Let's bring everything together. Your past does not control you. Your emotions are tools, not enemies. Happiness requires courage. Freedom demands responsibility. You are not broken. You are not late. You are not trapped. You are standing at a crossroads, and you always were. The final truth. No one is coming to save you, and that's good news, because it means you don't need permission, you don't need approval, you don't need perfect conditions, you only need a decision. Final hook. The question that changes everything. Years from now, you will look back at this version of yourself. The question is simple. Will you be grateful that you chose courage, or will you wonder why you waited so long? If this series helped you see yourself more clearly, subscribe to the channel, not for content, for commitment. Because clarity without action changes nothing, and your life is waiting for you to choose it. Stay awake, stay free.